Back in 2018, back when I used to live in this little, well, in a town that I used to grow up in and stuff, I had a mall that was a pretty big mall. We do have other malls, but the one I went to was the biggest one. Now, the biggest one I had was the one that had, pretty much a lot of places that you couldn't really find anywhere else, and stuff that you could find everywhere else. One of those stores that malls that went to had a Disney store. The Disney store was actually one of my favorite places to be. Now, however, my friend Emily and I decided to go there one day as I didn't have a gift to get for my boyfriend who I was dating with at the time of the story. Now, we decided to go to the Disney store to see if I could find anything that I would like to get for my boyfriend. So my friend drove us to the mall. It was a pretty big mall, so we both had to stay together, no surprisingly enough. When we get to the Disney store, we were looking at all the stuff, but most of them seemed to be overpriced, or they were expensive, or they were sold out. Most of the stuff there was pretty expensive, but there was a sale for some of the stuff going on. Like the medium-sized figures, or at least stuffed animals that were usually about $30 were now $15. It was a big sale, but I decided to get something for my brother, which I got him a medium-sized Tigger. And then I was looking at getting something for my boyfriend when my friend and I were watching a clip that the TV at the Disney store was showing. They were showing what seems to be they were showing this seems to be a clip from Aladdin. It looked like a whole new world. The episode, or at least the song from Aladdin, was playing and we were watching it. I noticed right on my left side was a small girl. She looked to be about maybe 7 years old. She looked really happy, and I looked at her, but I couldn't find her parents, and none of the parents I seen that were watching their kids watching clips from Disney movies were noticing her. I was the only one that noticed her, and I asked her, "Where's your parents?" Of course she just laughed, and then she took off. I ended up going after her to figure out what she was up to. As soon as I got to what seems to be a dressing room, or at least a try-it-on room, or at least a little place for younger kids to try on the Disney costumes, I went in there to study the little girl. She was sitting there, and she was just smiling. I asked, she said, "Do you want to play?" Me, sounding confused, I said, where are your parents?" As soon as I said that, the girl vanished, and I no longer saw her. I was really pale as a sheet, but of course my best friend Emily asked me if I was okay. I told her that I was fine, but then later on I told her, as I was about to go pay for my stuff, I looked at her and told her exactly what I saw. She, wondering what the hell was that. So I decided maybe I should ask the cashier about it. As soon as I was paying, I told the cashier about the girl I saw and why I was near the dressing room. And this cashier gave me what seemed to be an unsettling frown. He said, and I quote, "Oh, that young girl used to come to this store a lot with her parents pretty much every Friday day, but unfortunately she and her family had not returned for a long time. I think the last time I saw her was around before Christmas." As soon as the cashier said that, I began to wonder, what happened to that girl and what happened to her parents? It is very possible that they could have died, but I never experienced that paranormal in my life. I never saw that girl ever since I still went to that Disney store before they closed down. But I still wonder, how did this girl die? That was remains to be a mystery. This happened to my friends named Dustin, Jason, and Alex, and apparently they used to go to this one mall back when it was open in the day. Now, this happened sometime in 2017, and of course, the mall they went at was at another town that was only about maybe 2.5 hours away from a walk, 2.5 hours walk away from the town we were at. Now, however, though, this mall was actually a really interesting mall. It was actually used to have a lot of stores in that. But unfortunately, they shut down due to bankruptcy, and not a lot of people really come to the mall. So with that, they shut down the mall. Of course, with that being said, they had to lock up the doors so then no kids could break in and start causing riots. However, Jason, Dustin, and Alex decided to go explore an abandoned mall one night. They didn't have school the following day, so it was the best opportunity to do that. However, they decided to go on to the late hours of the night, probably around 1 or 2, as there were barely any security guards in the area. Now, they parked in the driveway and they found a way in, which was from a broken window. As they entered in through the broken window, they started walking around the mall. They realized that all the stores had been stripped clean. There was some broken shards of glasses everywhere, graffiti, some garbage littered around the places, trash cans tipped over. You get the picture. The mall was really abandoned, and it looked like it hadn't been used in a while. At that point, Jason and his friends were all looking around, thinking that the mall looked really neat. As they were looking at the mall, they were exploring the area, going to some places that they weren't usually allowed to visit from the public, but they eventually got to go there. As they were entering inside the mall and having a look around and checking out the places, they ended up could see lots of things and exploring certain areas that would have been off limits to the public. However, something really freaky began happening when Jason looked to see and hear footsteps. Dustin and Alex looked, but they couldn't find anybody, and they thought maybe it was just maybe a security guard or at least someone looking around the area. But with that being said, they didn't really care, and they just continued on. But as they were continuing on through the whole mall, they all of a sudden heard a clang, what seemed to be metal. The boys ended up turning around, thinking that they would have saw someone, but they ended up looking at it as they didn't see anyone. They ended up looking around the mall again, thinking that maybe somebody was actually there, but with that being said, they couldn't find it, and they ended up becoming more curious. They ended up calling out if anyone was there, but with that being said, they couldn't find anybody. But they ended up continuing on. But as they looked around, they could see some figure standing about a couple feet away. It looked like a man. He was about maybe 6 feet tall, and he looked like he was holding a lead pipe. Jason and the others turned around to see him, and then he started charging. Of course, Jason, along with his friends, Dustin and Alex, they ran as fast as they could to get out of the mall. As soon as they got out of the mall, and they were on the parking lot running towards their car, they looked back, but they couldn't see the man chasing them anymore. He had a lead pipe, but they couldn't find anybody. They didn't see him anymore. They couldn't find him anywhere. They weren't sure if that was a security guard or maybe this guy already broke in. They didn't even bother to go to the police, as they would have been in major trouble for breaking in, but they decided not to go to that mall again. They passed by that mall every now and then, but they never saw that guy again, and they're not sure if it was a security guard or if it was actually somebody was there that night with them. Whoever it was probably didn't want them there, but they had no doubt it would be a security guard, but it might be another intruder. But they never went into that mall again, and it has been demolished since then. When this happened to my friend, we'll call him Tyler, used to have a brother who used to work night shifts at a convenience store at a mall. Now, the mall that they were at was not very big. Of course, it was a mall that was in at least a few towns away from where my hometown was. So, Tyler's brother, which we'll call him Jay, used to work at a convenience store that was located inside a mall. But since it was open 24 hours a day, Jay was assigned to do night shifts. The rest of the mall was closed with some hopes of security guards wandering around, making sure nobody was going to enter anywhere in the mall but the convenience store. They do have a door that was open so people can get in the convenience store. And with that being said, Jay was behind the register. When he didn't have anything to do, he would work on his homework when there was no customers. Sometimes he would play games on his phone. But this happened sometime in 2015 in the summer, and Jay was on working one of the hottest summer nights. With that said, it was very air conditioned in the store, so Jay had no problem. As Jay was doing his usual thing, he was just usually chilling around when suddenly he can hear someone knock on the door. He probably looked but couldn't see anyone outside, so he decided to look. So he heard someone walk in, and he looked to see that there was a man. How did the man get in there was one thing. He looked homeless, and he looked like he was really sick and ill. So, with that being said, Jay went up to the counter and waited for him to pay. He grabbed what seemed to be a case of beer. Jay told him his total, and the guy said, "I'm not paying that much." But Jay told him that he couldn't lower any price, and he apologized to him. All of a sudden, he then gets grumpy and just walks off. But as he walks off, Jay just put the case of the beer back. Suddenly, he heard what seemed to be glass shattering, and he looked to see that the guy who broke the glass with what seemed to be a baseball bat. Jay said, "Get out of here! I'm calling the police!" With that being said, Jay started calling the police, thinking that the guy was going to hit him or at least attack him. Of course, with that said, the guy who had the baseball bat heard the sirens and unfortunately tried to make his escape, but he was caught. The police arrived and they took down Jay's statement as Jay explained the issue. Of course, Jay was questioned by the police for a little while, but with that being said, the guy who tried to break in the store was forced in the back seat. Jay had to call his boss, and they had to get the windows on the doors replaced. With that being said, Jay had quit his job from the night shifts for the mall at the convenience store and never went there again. He never even did night shifts anymore. He only did day shifts at the mall, but only at a different location and not at the convenience store. That was actually one of the nights that Jay had quit. This happened to me and my brother back in Christmas of 2017, and this was back before my parents had got separated. My dad would take us to see Santa in the mall every year. Ever since I was a child, it was something we've always been doing. Now, one year was almost the year that me and my brother were almost kidnapped, if my dad had not stopped the kidnapper. Even though my dad is an asshole, I still appreciate what he did to this very day. Now, with that being said, my dad and I, along with my brother, were going to see Santa at the mall. To get pictures with him, at least. However, after we got pictures from Santa, my brother and I decided to have lunch with my dad at A&W. As we were having lunch at A&W, my dad said that he has to go to the washroom and asked me to look after my brother. I immediately nodded as I was 19 and was the oldest. I nodded and my dad went. My brother was just walking around as he ate already and he was pretty quick. As I was continuing to eat, I saw a guy that my brother had never seen before. He looked like he was in his 40s, walked up to him. "Hey there, I got some candy for you in my van. Let's go get some. It'd be a Christmas treat," he said. My brother took this guy's hand and they ended up walking away from me. My dad was still in the washroom, so I saw my brother walking with him. I immediately went up to him and I went up and said, "Hey, that's my brother." The guy ended up looking and looked at me, let go of my brother, and said, "Oh, this was your brother." "Well, yeah, he was looking for his family," he said. I know he was BS, yes, but apparently I held my brother close, as my brother was confused, but so was I. Apparently, my dad came back and the guy was already gone. As he was walking away, my dad had a conversation with me, asked me about the man, and I explained to my dad what I saw. My dad called called what seemed to be the mall security, and I explained the best of my abilities what the guy looked like. That's the same thing could be said for my brother. The mall security tried to look for the man, but they couldn't find him, and he must have left the mall. But they couldn't even find him outside the mall. Security guards were patrolling the night of Christmas Eve, just so they could make sure that the same guy didn't come back. But we never got any updates on him, and I never saw him again. I don't know what that guy could have done to my brother if I had not seen him, or at least my brother being walked off with him. But I know I could have lost my brother that day if I had not acted up quicker.